When Milly Fremont disappeared that Valentine's Day afternoon in 1923, her followers refused to give up hope. Palo offered a $10,000 reward to whoever found her.
But after 3 weeks, even her most staunch followers began to give up hope. It was finally decided to hold her funeral at the church, which was a spectacle unto itself. There was traffic around the church in every direction for 6 blocks.
Palo performed the eulogy. At the end of the ceremony, they took an offering, and Palo said, "Remember, Milly would have wanted you to give very generously." Roughly a week later, Palo and other leaders were at the church discussing future plans. They needed to replace Milly, which Palo said would be a tough task. Nobody had magnetism like her, he said. What we need right now is for her to drop down from heaven. As he was saying these words, Milly appeared at the back of the church, smiling, and said, "Guess who's still alive?" Milly Fremont was not dead after all, and as the news of this spread across the nation, America rejoiced. There were Milly Fremont homecoming parties and parades down streets in major cities. Headlines called it a miracle. But there were many questions. Where had Milly Fremont been these last 31 days?
Well, she told the press that she had gone swimming while her friends were gone, and the current pushed her south. And when she made it to shore, there were some big rocks, and she hit her head on the rocks and must have developed amnesia, because she didn't remember anything after that.
She said a woman apparently found her on the beach, a woman who didn't know who she was, and she took Milly home and took care of her. And then, 31 days later, Milly's memory suddenly came back, and she took a cab to the church.
Reese Baumgartner, a rival evangelist in Los Angeles, was highly jealous of Milly's tremendous success and highly suspicious of her disappearance story. He hired a private investigator to look into it. The PI began snooping around, but he could not find the woman who had helped Milly, or anything that proved her story was true. There were so many questions to answer. Why did she suddenly decide to go swimming without telling her friends? The Coast Guard searched the area. Why wasn't Milly seen fighting against the current?
The Coast Guard searched the area thoroughly. Why didn't they see Milly struggling out there in the water? Why didn't they see her at the beach where she supposedly washed up? Why didn't any of the searchers on land see her?
Why didn't this woman call the police, even if she didn't know who she was? She must have assumed that this woman had family and friends somewhere who would, be worried about her.
On March 23rd, a man came into the newspaper offices of the Star News Record in Los Angeles. He claimed that he was the former lover of Milly Fremont and that he had been with her during her disappearance. He was willing to sell the story to the paper for $500. The editor laughed in his face. Then the man produced 7 love letters Milly had written to him in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. The editor smiled and said, "Sir, I do believe that you have just become my new best friend." The man's name was Johnny Bakerton, and his story would bring to light the shocking reasons for the Milly Fremont disappearance. At the Milly Fremont Museum, the love letters Milly wrote to him are on display. Letters that brought out secrets that otherwise would have remained secrets forever.
Johnny Bakerton was a married man, but he fell in love with Milly and Milly fell in love with him. He ran a Christian organization in Los Angeles called Living the Clean Life, which protested against immorality in society, mainly adultery.
When Milly's friends went to buy cotton candy on the pier that day, Milly went south along the beach and then walked up to the road where Bakerton was waiting in a running car. She put on a blonde wig and sunglasses to keep from being recognized and sped off to a beach cottage near San Diego. At the Milly Fremont Museum, the wig she wore as part of her disguise in her secret escape is on display. But why didn't Milly just say she was going on vacation and then meet with Bakerton discreetly later? Why did she choose to disappear in such a mysterious way?
She was planning to run off with Johnny Bakerton. Forever. She wanted the world to believe that she had drowned. Their plan was to lay low at the cottage for 6 weeks and then sail to New Zealand. They would start a new ministry there with Milly using a new name and identity and sporting the blonde wig. But one day they had an argument over whether the vegetable was pronounced potato or potato. And that ended their relationship.
The San Diego cottage where Milly Fremont and Johnny Bakerton had their argument still stands. In the brochure for the rental of the cottage, it states, "It is here where Milly Fremont and Johnny Bakerton had their seashore romance while the world was looking for her. February 1923. The scandal rocked the nation. America's angel was really an adulteress. Headline after headline told the world what really happened.
About 20% of her followers stopped going to the church, but most stuck with her. They refused to accept the fact that their beloved angel was a sinner. They called Bakerton a fake, who was just out for fame and money and influence.
One woman said, "I don't care if Milly Fremont burned down an orphanage on Christmas Eve. She is God's vessel to the world."
In August of 1923, Palo was discovered to be stealing funds from the church to finance a mansion in Belize. For 2 years, he had been pocketing money meant for a missions fund. Milly was shocked. She told him, "It's one thing if you steal from our congregation, but you can't steal from me." She ended their partnership, saying, "Palo is so corrupt, to borrow an old saying, the only thing he wouldn't steal is a red-hot stove." Then it was discovered that Palo had been fraudulent in his many business dealings with the various organizations he was involved with. This included bribery, backroom payoffs, and, as one judge put it, crimes that I didn't know crooks had even invented yet. The lawsuits began to pile up. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in the Crookville prison in San Paco, which was about 200 miles north of Hollywood. The Crookville prison is now a college for law enforcement training. But in the late winter of 1924, it became the home of the world's most famous guru and false prophet. While in prison, he wrote a letter to Milly that read, "I'm so sorry, my dear, for my dastardly behavior. I am obviously a poor specimen as a representative for the Lord. I promise to change my ways, and from now on I will be an honest man and a true preacher of the Word of God. Now, let's work on a plan for busting me out. We'll escape to South America and begin a new ministry there."
He wanted her to bake a cake with a file in it and bring it to the prison. and he would file his way through the bars and escape. He said, "God would want it this way. In prison, I can't preach the gospel to the world. Certainly the Lord will turn a blind eye to a prison breakout, since I am his chief vessel." And Milly replied with a one-sentence letter that read, "You got what you deserved."
At the Milly Fremont Museum, Palo's prison letter and Milly's reply are on display in the South Wing. Palo would serve out his prison sentence, though he made cash on the side by teaching convicts how to make a fortune in false prophecy. In 1924, the pressure of the scandal and Bakerton's betrayal were too much for Milly to handle. She decided it was time to close the church and leave the country and build a new life somewhere else. She spoke to the nation in a radio address.
"I have decided to take leave of America and go to a place where I can do the Lord's work honestly and in anonymity. I have made some terrible mistakes in my life, which I truly regret. The Apostle John wrote of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, the three categories of sin which led to the fall of mankind in the Garden of Eden. And, in my infinite wisdom, I was a sucker for all three. I pursued illicit romance, only to end up in a relationship so hollow it collapsed under the most ridiculous of reasons. I pursued money in a greedy, inappropriate way, and was punished with a partner who would steal the rug out from under his own mother, and then sell it back to her for a hefty price. And I pursued fame. Indeed, I wanted the glory, only to discover that fame can sting you as well as stimulate you. And selfish ambition is not the Christian way of life. I want to thank my followers for their steadfast devotion. I deceived you and squeezed out of you so much of your hard-earned money. I would love to pay you all back, but due to my circumstances, I am short on funds myself. And to the press I say, don't come looking. You will never find me. And with that I bid you an affectionate farewell."
And Milly Fremont was never seen again. But, of course, there were the many claimed sightings through all the years. One man said she was seen in Africa, building schoolhouses in small villages. To help support the ministry, she would do crocodile hunting on the side. One woman claimed that Milly Fremont ran an orphanage in Switzerland, but the facility ran into financial trouble, so to keep it going, Milly took a job with a circus where she was shot out of a cannon.
One woman claimed that Milly Fremont went to the Hawaiian Islands, that she ran a missionary program on the island of Maui, and to help make ends meet, she worked as a cliff diver. At dusk, she would light these torches on a hill, and for the spectators, and then dive off a 75-foot cliff.
In February of 1984, a crate containing 32 reels of film was found in an attic in upstate New York. It was turned over to a film collector named Ernie Feldman, who was shocked to discover that it was The Roaring Silence, the T.L. McBride war epic, which had failed so badly in 1921. Most of the film, which was believed to be lost, was in amazingly good condition. Feldman would spend the next 7 years restoring the picture, and then presented it in the 1,300-seat Temple Theater at the University of Malone in Albany on May 1, 1991, the 70th anniversary of the movie's ill-fated New York City opening. The 5-hour and 24-minute film was shown in 2 parts, with a 2-hour dinner and discussion break in between, and a full orchestra provided a live musical soundtrack. When the screening ended just before midnight, the audience gave it a 7-minute standing ovation. The press was ecstatic, calling it a lost masterpiece, misunderstood in its day, and too complex and brilliant for the 1921 critics to get their minds around. The Motion Picture Critics and Historians Association listed it as one of the 10 best films of the silent era. Milly Fremont's performance as the lovesick nurse Maggie May Mayer drew considerable attention. The BWB Society Film magazine called her performance one of the top 5 by an actress of the silent era. And the Standard American Film magazine put Milly on the cover with a story entitled A Lost Gem. Though it took 70 years, Milly Fremont finally became what she told her mother she would be: a movie star.